The night is quiet over the Nile. The water moves slowly through the darkness, carrying tiny reflections of stars across its gentle surface. A warm breeze drifts over the riverbanks. Reeds whisper softly beside the water. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once and then falls silent again. Most of the people along the river are asleep now. Inside small mud brick homes, families rest on woven mats. The air is warm even after sunset. Through open doorways, the smell of baked bread still lingers from the evening meal. A few oil lamps burn low, their tiny flames trembling gently in the darkness. The world feels still. The great stone temples stand quietly beneath the stars. Palm trees sway slowly. The desert waits beyond the green ribbon of life that follows the Nile. And as the night settles around ancient Egypt, it becomes easier to understand something unusual about this civilization. For thousands of years, life changed very little. Kings came and went. Dynasties rose and disappeared. New temples were built beside older temples. Yet for ordinary people, many days looked remarkably similar to the days that came before. The river flooded. The fields grew green. The harvest arrived. The flood returned once more. Generation after generation lived within the same rhythm. And for many people, that rhythm felt natural. It felt dependable. It felt safe. Long before sunrise, while darkness still covered the land, the first workers would begin to wake. The air at this hour was often the coolest it would be all day. A farmer might sit quietly for a moment outside his home. He would listen to insects singing near the river. He would watch the eastern horizon slowly brighten with the first pale light of morning. Soon the sounds of daily life would begin. Doors opening. Footsteps on packed earth. A donkey shifting its weight. Voices speaking softly. The village would awaken little by little. Women prepared bread dough that had rested through the night. Water jars were carried from storage rooms. Fires were lit carefully. Thin streams of smoke rose into the brightening sky. Children rubbed sleep from their eyes. Old people stretched aching backs. Workers gathered tools. The same routines repeated every day. And that repetition was one reason Egypt remained so steady for so long. Most people knew exactly what tomorrow would bring. Not every detail, of course. But the shape of life rarely changed. The farmer knew he would walk to his fields. The fisherman knew he would launch his boat. The scribe knew he would sit with his writing tools. The baker knew flour would need grinding. The builder knew stone would still need moving. Many people spent their entire lives doing work very similar to the work their parents had done before them. The Nile made this possible. The river was more than water. It was a clock. It was a calendar. It was a guide for daily life. Every year, the river flooded. Water spread across the land. Dark fertile soil settled over the fields. Then the water slowly retreated. Seeds were planted. Crops grew. Harvest followed. The cycle repeated again. And because it repeated so reliably, people learned to trust it. The river became part of their understanding of how the world worked. As dawn spread across the landscape, sunlight touched the tops of palm trees and temple walls. Farmers moved into the fields. The soil beneath their feet felt cool for a short while. Birds crossed the brightening sky. The day was beginning. Most farmers worked hard from morning until evening. Life beside the Nile was not easy. Fields needed constant attention. Canals had to be maintained. Water had to be directed carefully. Animals required feeding. Tools required repair. The work was repetitive and often exhausting. Yet repetition itself became a kind of comfort. A man who had spent 40 years farming knew every path through his fields. He knew where the soil stayed damp longest. He knew where birds liked to gather. He knew which patches of land received the strongest sunlight. His son learned the same lessons. And eventually his grandson would learn them too. The knowledge flowed quietly through generations. Not written in books. Not carved in stone. Simply remembered. Passed from one pair of hands to another. As the morning grew warmer, activity increased everywhere. Boats moved along the Nile carrying grain, pottery, wood, and people. Merchants opened small stalls. Craftsmen began their work. The smell of fresh bread drifted through streets and alleys. In workshops, workers shaped clay into jars. Others carved wood. Others wove cloth. Others hammered metal beneath the growing heat. Many workshops were crowded. Dust floated through beams of sunlight. Tools scraped and tapped. Voices blended together. Yet even here, daily routines remained familiar. Most craftsmen spent years mastering a single skill. Sometimes a lifetime. A young apprentice learned from an older worker. The older worker had once learned from someone before him. Methods stayed almost unchanged. There was little reason to alter what already worked. This is one reason ancient Egypt often appears calm when we look back across history. People valued stability. They respected tradition. The old ways carried weight. A technique used by grandparents felt trustworthy. An older design felt reliable. A familiar custom felt safe. The passing years did not always demand something new. And so many things remained the same. By midday, the heat became intense. The sun hung high above the river valley. Fields shimmered beneath bright light. Stone surfaces grew hot. Workers wiped sweat from their faces. Many paused briefly to eat simple meals. Bread was common. Beer was common as well. Not the beer many people imagine today, but a thick drink made from grain. It provided nourishment and energy. Workers sat together in small patches of shade. Conversations drifted through the warm air. People discussed crops, families, neighbors, weather, small concerns of ordinary life. The same kinds of conversations repeated throughout generations. Meanwhile, scribes continued their duties. These men occupied a different place in society. Their work was not usually physical. Instead, they wrote. They recorded harvests, tracked supplies, managed records, prepared official documents. Many spent long hours seated indoors, brush in hand, papyrus spread before them. Outside, the heat pressed against walls. Inside, quiet concentration filled the room. The life of a scribe could be repetitive in its own way. Numbers, lists, names, measurements, records. Again and again. Day after day. And yet this work helped preserve order. Order mattered deeply in ancient Egypt. The world was expected to function properly. The river should flood. The fields should grow. The seasons should arrive. People should fulfill their responsibilities. When everything followed its proper place, life felt balanced. This belief touched almost every corner of society. Even architecture reflected it. Many buildings followed familiar patterns. Temples were built according to traditions that stretched far into the past. Artists often used established styles. Sculptors repeated forms that had been accepted for centuries. The goal was not always innovation. Often it was continuity. A connection between past and present. As afternoon slowly moved toward evening, shadows lengthened across the land. The worst heat began to fade. Workers finished tasks. Animals were guided home. Boats approached riverbanks. Dust rose from roads traveled all day. Children played near houses. Women prepared evening meals. The smell of cooking drifted through villages and towns. After long hours of labor, people gathered together. This was often the most peaceful part of the day. The sun lowered toward the horizon. Golden light touched walls and rooftops. The river reflected shades of orange and red. People sat outside when temperatures became more comfortable. Conversations continued. Stories were shared. Neighbors greeted one another. The pace of life slowed. No rushing. No urgency. Only the steady movement of another familiar day reaching its end. As darkness approached, lamps were lit. Tiny flames glowed inside homes. Families ate simple meals together. Bread. Vegetables. Fish when available. Perhaps dates or figs. The food was not elaborate. Yet it was enough. Afterward, many people simply rested. Their bodies were tired. Years of physical labor left marks on muscles and joints. Backs ached. Hands hardened. Feet grew tough from walking. Life demanded effort. But rest arrived each night. And the darkness brought relief from the sun. Beyond the villages, the desert became quiet. The heat stored in the sand slowly escaped into the night air. Stars appeared one by one. The sky stretched endlessly overhead. Without bright lights, the heavens looked vast and close. People could follow familiar constellations across the darkness. They watched the moon rise above the landscape. They listened to distant sounds carried on the wind. The same stars had watched over their ancestors. The same stars would watch over future generations. This feeling of continuity was everywhere. In the river. In the fields. In the homes. In the stories people told. Perhaps that is why Egypt often seems so unchanging. The civilization lasted for thousands of years not because nothing ever happened, but because many people preferred the familiar rhythms that surrounded them. Change did occur. New rulers appeared. Cities expanded. Trade routes shifted. Foreign visitors arrived. Yet beneath these larger events, ordinary life often moved at its steady pace. A farmer still woke before sunrise. A baker still kneaded dough. A fisherman still pushed his boat into the water. A child still learned from parents. A family still gathered at day's end. And as another ancient evening settles gently over the Nile, the warm breeze moves once more through the reeds beside the river. The lamps burn lower. Voices grow quieter. The fields rest beneath the moonlight. The water continues its patient journey through the darkness. And throughout Egypt, thousands of sleeping families prepare to wake again tomorrow and follow the same familiar paths they followed yesterday, beneath the same stars, beside the same river, within a world that changes only very slowly. The darkness remains gentle over the Nile for a few more hours. Most homes are silent now. Only the occasional sound of shifting animals or distant water breaks the stillness. The air has cooled slightly. A soft breeze moves through narrow streets and open courtyards. Somewhere near the riverbank, a fisherman rises before everyone else. His day begins long before sunrise. He sits quietly for a moment, listening to the world around him. The stars still fill the sky. The village remains asleep. He gathers his net and walks toward the water. The path is familiar. He has walked it thousands of times. His father walked the same path. His grandfather likely did as well. The earth beneath his sandals feels cool in the darkness. Reeds brush softly against one another. The river appears as a dark ribbon stretching into the distance. Soon he reaches his boat. The wood creaks gently as he steps inside. The Nile carries many lives upon its surface. Farmers depend upon it. Merchants travel across it. Builders transport supplies along it. Children play beside it. Fishermen work within it. The river is always present. Even while people sleep, it continues moving quietly through the land. The fisherman pushes away from shore. The boat drifts slowly into deeper water. Around him, the ancient world remains wrapped in darkness. There is no rush. No sudden movement. Only the steady sound of water touching wood. As he works, the eastern sky begins to change. A pale gray light appears above the horizon. The stars slowly fade. Birds awaken among the reeds. The first signs of another day arrive. Back in the village, other people begin waking as well. Inside mud brick homes, families stir from sleep. Many houses are simple. The walls are thick and sturdy. The roofs are often flat. Rooms remain cool during the night but grow warmer as the day progresses. The homes of ordinary workers are not large. Several family members may sleep close together. Personal space is limited. Privacy is rare. Yet these arrangements feel normal. People grow accustomed to them from childhood. A mother rises and prepares the morning meal. Grain must be ground into flour. This task takes time. Heavy grinding stones scrape against one another. The work is repetitive. Arms grow tired. Hands become strong. Every household knows this routine. Bread does not simply appear. It requires labor from beginning to end. The grain must first be grown, then harvested, then stored, then ground, then mixed, then baked. Every loaf represents many hours of work spread across many people. As dawn brightens, the smell of baking bread begins to drip through the settlement. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Doors open. Voices emerge. The village comes alive. Children carry water jars. Men prepare tools. Animals are fed. Neighbors greet one another. The same familiar movements unfold as they have countless times before. This repetition creates a feeling of stability. People know where they belong. They know what is expected. They understand their responsibilities. Many modern people imagine history as a constant series of dramatic events. But for most ancient Egyptians, life was not shaped by dramatic events. Life was shaped by routine. A farmer cared more about water levels than distant politics. A baker cared more about flour supplies than royal ceremonies. A fisherman worried about his catch. A mother worried about feeding her children. The concerns of ordinary life filled most days. And because those concerns remained similar across generations, society itself remained remarkably steady. As the morning sun climbs higher, workers begin moving toward their tasks. The roads become busier. Donkeys carry supplies. Laborers travel together. Merchants prepare goods for sale. Dust rises beneath countless footsteps. The air gradually warms. Already the promise of another hot day can be felt. Near larger towns, workshops fill with activity. One worker shapes clay. His hands move automatically. Years of practice guide every motion. He knows exactly how much pressure to apply. Exactly when to add water. Exactly how the clay should feel. Nearby another craftsman decorates finished pottery. The designs are familiar. Customers expect certain styles. Tradition guides the work. New ideas appear occasionally, but older designs remain trusted. Many Egyptians viewed tradition as something valuable. Old methods had survived for a reason. Old customs connected people to ancestors. Old patterns carried authority. The past felt close. In some ways, it was always present. A worker could stand inside a temple and see carvings created long before his grandparents were born. The images looked familiar. The messages felt familiar. The connection between generations remained visible everywhere. As morning becomes afternoon, the heat settles heavily across the land. The desert beyond the fertile river valley shimmers beneath the sun. Stone buildings absorb warmth. Fields glow beneath bright light. Many workers pause briefly when possible. Shade becomes precious. Even a small tree can attract several people seeking relief. Conversations slow. Movements become more careful. Energy is conserved. The climate itself encourages a slower pace. There is little benefit in rushing beneath such heat. The wise worker learns patience. The wise farmer understands timing. The wise traveler avoids unnecessary effort during the hottest hours. Ancient Egyptian life often followed the rhythm of the environment. Nature quietly set the schedule. The Nile determined planting seasons. The sun determined working hours. The flood determined agricultural success. Human plans existed within larger natural cycles. And because those cycles remained dependable, society remained dependable as well. Far from the fields, scribes continue their work. Some sit inside government buildings. Others serve temples. Others manage storage facilities filled with grain. Their days often pass in careful concentration. Records matter. Supplies must be counted. Deliveries tracked. Taxes recorded. Inventories maintained. The work may appear dull to outsiders. Yet it forms an important foundation beneath daily life. Without records, confusion grows. Without organization, shortages occur. Without administration, large projects become difficult. Egypt's stability depends partly upon thousands of small administrative tasks completed quietly each day. The scribes rarely become famous. Most people never know their names. Yet their steady efforts help preserve order. And order remains one of the most important values in ancient Egyptian society. Many people believe the world functions best when everything remains balanced. Fields should be planted at the proper time. Canals should be maintained. Religious ceremonies should be performed correctly. Families should fulfill responsibilities. Communities should cooperate. This belief encourages continuity. It rewards reliability. It discourages unnecessary disruption. Over centuries, these attitudes contribute to a civilization that changes slowly. The afternoon drifts onward. Along the riverbanks, fishermen continue their work. Some repair nets. Others clean their catches. Children watch and learn. Lessons are rarely taught in formal speeches. Instead, knowledge passes through observation. A boy watches his father untangle a net. Later he learns to do the same. A girl watches her mother prepare bread. Later she masters the process herself. Skills travel quietly between generations. This transfer of knowledge happens constantly. Every household participates. Every occupation depends upon it. The result is continuity. Not because people resist learning, but because useful knowledge already exists. The proven method remains trusted. The familiar process remains respected. As the sun begins descending toward the horizon, the atmosphere softens. Long shadows stretch across fields. Workers complete final tasks. Animals return from grazing. Boats move steadily toward shore. The heat slowly releases its grip upon the landscape. Many people feel relief. Evening is approaching. This transition often brings a sense of calm. The busiest hours are ending. The hardest labor is finished. The village changes character. Morning is about preparation. Midday is about effort. Evening is about recovery. Families gather once more. Cooking fires burn. Food is shared. Conversations return. People discuss harvests, repairs, marriages, illnesses, and weather. Most discussions concern practical matters. Life is immediate. The next season matters. The next flood matters. The next harvest matters. Large historical events often feel distant compared to daily needs. This is another reason Egypt appears unchanging. History books often focus on rulers. Ordinary people focus on survival. A king may begin a building project. A farmer still needs to plant crops. A dynasty may end. A baker still needs flour. A new official may arrive. A fisherman still needs fish. Daily necessities continue regardless of political change. The evening meal may be simple. Bread remains central. Vegetables provide nourishment. Fish appears when available. Fruit offers sweetness. People eat what the land and river provide. Meals are rarely extravagant. Yet there is comfort in familiarity. The same foods appear again and again. The same recipes pass through generations. The same smells fill homes. Children grow up surrounded by these traditions. Later they repeat them as adults. Night slowly returns. The sky deepens from gold to purple. Then from purple to black. Stars emerge overhead. The temperature becomes more comfortable. Many people spend time outdoors before sleeping. The darkness feels peaceful. The desert beyond the villages appears mysterious yet calm. The Nile reflects moonlight. The water continues moving through the night just as it did yesterday and the day before. An old man sits outside his home. His hands show decades of labor. His back carries the memory of countless days in the fields. He watches younger workers passing nearby. Many of them perform the same tasks he once performed. The pattern continues. One generation follows another. Life moves forward without rushing. Children become adults. Adults become elders. Elders pass away. Yet the village remains. The river remains. The fields remain. The routines remain. This continuity can feel comforting. It provides structure. It creates familiarity. People understand their place within the larger rhythm of society. For many Egyptians, this rhythm feels almost eternal. Not because they believe nothing will ever change, but because change arrives slowly. So slowly that a person may spend an entire lifetime surrounded by customs that existed before birth and will continue after death. As the night grows deeper, homes become quiet once more. Oil lamps flicker softly. Families settle onto sleeping mats. Children drift into dreams. Workers rest tired muscles. The sounds of conversation gradually fade. The stars shine above temple walls and village rooftops alike. The river glides through darkness. The reeds whisper gently in the breeze. And throughout the fertile valley, countless ordinary lives rest peacefully, preparing to wake again before sunrise and continue the ancient routines that have shaped Egypt for generation after generation, beneath the same vast sky and beside the same patient waters of the Nile. The Nile continues its slow journey through the darkness. Long after the last conversations have faded and the final oil lamps have gone dim, the river remains awake. Its waters slide gently between muddy banks. Small waves brush against reeds. Moonlight shimmers across the surface in broken silver patterns. The villages sleep beside it. The towns sleep beside it. The temples sleep beside it. Even the great stone monuments rest quietly beneath the stars. For a few peaceful hours, the busy routines of ancient Egypt pause. Yet before long, the cycle begins again. A faint gray light slowly appears in the east. Night loosens its hold. The stars retreat one by one. The horizon brightens. Another morning arrives exactly as countless mornings have arrived before. A farmer wakes. His sleeping mat is simple. His home is modest. The walls around him are made from mud brick, shaped from the very soil brought by the Nile's floods. The material feels ordinary because it is everywhere. Entire communities are built from it. The farmer rises carefully. Years of labor have left stiffness in his body. His shoulders ache slightly. His knees complain. His hands are rough from work. None of this surprises him. Such discomfort is familiar. Most adults carry similar signs of effort. Life beside the Nile provides stability, but it does not remove hardship. Fields demand attention every season. Canals require maintenance. Harvests require strength. The work never fully ends. Even so, there is comfort in knowing what each day will bring. Outside, the air remains cool. For a short time, before the heat arrives, the world feels gentle. Birds call from the riverbank. Palm leaves rustle overhead. The smell of damp earth rises from the ground. This scent is one of the great gifts of the Nile. Each year, floodwaters leave behind fresh soil. Dark soil. Rich soil. Living soil. Without it, the surrounding desert would quickly reclaim much of the land. The contrast is striking. Only a short distance beyond the fields, dry sands stretch toward the horizon. The desert waits quietly. Its presence reminds everyone how precious the river truly is. As the village awakens, movement spreads through narrow streets. Women prepare food. Children carry water. Men gather tools. Animals stir inside small enclosures. The sounds are familiar. They are the sounds of continuity. The sounds of ordinary life repeating itself. A visitor arriving from another land might notice something unusual. People are rarely in a hurry. Tasks are completed steadily rather than quickly. Conversations happen naturally. Work follows established rhythms. The pace feels measured. Part of this comes from experience. People understand that most important work takes time. Seeds grow slowly. Bread bakes slowly. Boats travel slowly. Buildings rise slowly. The Nile itself moves without rushing. Ancient Egyptian life often reflects these same qualities. As sunlight spreads across the landscape, farmers move toward their fields. The land is divided into plots. Some are large. Many are small. Each requires attention. A farmer examines young plants. Another clears weeds. Another repairs a damaged canal wall. Water management remains one of the most important responsibilities in the countryside. Without careful planning, fields suffer. Too little water can damage crops. Too much water can create problems as well. Generations of farmers have learned how to balance these needs. Their knowledge comes from observation. Year after year. Season after season. They watch the river. They study the soil. They learn from older relatives. This accumulated wisdom becomes part of daily life. There are no grand announcements. No dramatic discoveries. Only steady learning passed quietly from one generation to the next. This gradual transfer of knowledge helps explain why Egypt remains stable for so long. Experience is valued. Tradition is respected. People trust methods that have already proven successful. Nearby, a group of laborers repairs an irrigation channel. The work is physical. Mud sticks to their legs. The sun climbs steadily higher. Sweat appears across their foreheads. Yet they continue. Water must reach the fields. The task matters. Many of the largest achievements of ancient Egypt depend upon ordinary workers performing countless practical duties. Temples attract attention. Monuments attract attention. Tombs attract attention. But behind every impressive structure stands an enormous amount of labor. Someone carried materials. Someone shaped bricks. Someone transported supplies. Someone prepared food for workers. Someone kept records. Someone repaired tools. The foundation of civilization rests upon ordinary effort. Most workers never become famous. Their names disappear. Yet their labor remains woven into the landscape. As morning continues, larger settlements grow increasingly busy. Markets begin filling with activity. Merchants arrange goods carefully. Customers examine baskets, pottery, cloth, and food. Voices mingle in the warm air. The atmosphere is lively but not chaotic. People know one another. Many faces are familiar. Relationships develop over years. Trust grows gradually. In stable communities, reputation matters. A merchant known for fairness attracts customers. A skilled craftsman earns respect. A reliable worker gains opportunities. These social connections strengthen daily life. They create networks of cooperation. And cooperation helps maintain stability. Nearby, a potter works at his craft. His hands move with practiced confidence. The clay responds beneath gentle pressure. A vessel slowly takes shape. The process is almost hypnotic. Turning. Shaping. Smoothing. Turning again. The rhythm remains steady. The potter has repeated these movements thousands of times. Each completed vessel resembles many others. This consistency is not considered a weakness. Quite the opposite. Consistency demonstrates skill. It shows mastery. A customer expects a certain quality. The potter provides it. Tradition and craftsmanship work together. Across Egypt, similar scenes unfold. Carpenters shape wood. Weavers create cloth. Stoneworkers carve blocks. Metal workers fashion tools. Each occupation carries its own routines. Each occupation contributes to the larger system. Together they create a society that feels dependable. As midday approaches, sunlight becomes intense. The heat settles heavily across streets and fields. Shadows shrink. The air seems almost motionless. People adjust naturally. Work slows where possible. Shade becomes valuable. Walls provide shelter. Trees offer relief. Many people eat during this part of the day. The meal is often simple. Bread remains central. Bread appears at nearly every meal. Its importance cannot be overstated. Producing bread requires cooperation between farmers, millers, bakers, and families. Entire chains of labor support something that may seem ordinary. The same is true for many aspects of daily life. Simple comforts often depend upon complex networks of work. A loaf of bread contains the efforts of many hands. A fishing net contains the efforts of many hands. A home contains the efforts of many hands. Civilization itself emerges from cooperation repeated over long periods of time. Inside a temple complex, scribes continue writing. The rooms are quieter than the bustling marketplace. Papyrus scrolls rest nearby. Ink and brushes wait on low tables. The scribes focus carefully on their tasks. Some record deliveries. Others track supplies. Others copy religious texts. The work requires patience. Mistakes must be corrected. Details matter. Accuracy matters. Many scribes spend years developing their skills. Reading and writing are specialized abilities. Not everyone possesses them. As a result, scribes hold an important place in society. Yet even their work reflects the broader theme of continuity. Texts are copied. Records are preserved. Knowledge is maintained. The past remains connected to the present. This connection appears everywhere in Egyptian life. A child learns stories that grandparents once heard. A craftsman practices techniques taught generations earlier. A priest performs ceremonies rooted in ancient traditions. The passage of time feels different in such a society. Change exists, but continuity often feels stronger. Outside, afternoon light fills the streets. The heat reaches its peak. Many workers feel exhausted. Physical labor under the Egyptian sun is demanding. Bodies tire quickly. Muscles ache. Energy fades. People understand these realities well. Rest becomes important. Short pauses help workers continue. The climate itself encourages a measured pace. There is wisdom in conserving strength. As the afternoon slowly passes, shadows begin lengthening once more. The harsh brightness softens. Relief approaches. Workers complete final tasks. Merchants prepare to close stalls. Boats return toward shore. The atmosphere gradually changes. This daily transition from labor to rest carries a special feeling. Many people look forward to it. The hardest part of the day is ending. Families begin gathering again. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Children return home. Conversations resume. The village grows more social. An elderly woman sits near a doorway, preparing food. Her hands move automatically. Decades of experience guide every motion. She barely needs to think about the process. The recipe is familiar. The ingredients are familiar. The routine is familiar. Such scenes occur throughout Egypt every evening. They may seem ordinary. Yet these small routines help preserve culture. They create continuity across generations. A child watching today may repeat the same actions many years later. Knowledge survives through repetition. Customs survive through repetition. Communities survive through repetition. The evening meal brings people together. Stories are shared. Questions are asked. Advice is given. Family bonds strengthen. Many important lessons are passed along during these quiet moments. Not through formal education. Not through written instruction. But through conversation. Observation. Experience. As the sun sinks lower, golden light spreads across the Nile. The river becomes beautiful in a calm, understated way. Its surface reflects the changing sky. Boats appear as dark silhouettes against the glow. The air cools gradually. Birds settle into resting places. The countryside seems to exhale. People often spend time outdoors during these hours. The temperature is pleasant. The atmosphere feels peaceful. Neighbors gather. Children play. Workers recover from the day's efforts. For a brief period, life slows noticeably. The demands of labor retreat into the background. The future can wait until morning. Only the present moment matters. This quiet evening rhythm has repeated for centuries. Perhaps thousands of years. One generation experiences it. Then another. Then another. The continuity becomes almost invisible because it is so constant. Yet it shapes daily life in profound ways. It creates predictability. It provides structure. It offers reassurance. People know what tomorrow will likely bring. And that knowledge can feel comforting. Night approaches once again. The western horizon darkens. The first stars appear overhead. Oil lamps begin glowing inside homes. The sounds of activity gradually soften. One by one, conversations fade. Families prepare for sleep. The village settles. The river remains. Always the river remains. It glides quietly through darkness. Past fields. Past temples. Past fishing boats tied to shore. Past sleeping homes. Its waters connect countless lives. They connect generations. They connect the distant past to the present. And beneath the vast Egyptian sky, as another peaceful evening settles across the fertile valley, ordinary people drift toward sleep, ready to wake once more with the coming dawn and continue the slow, familiar rhythms that have made ancient Egypt feel calm, steady, and wonderfully unchanged for so very long. The night deepens once more across the Nile Valley. A quiet stillness settles over the land. The last cooking fires have faded into glowing embers. Oil lamps flicker softly behind mud brick walls. Beyond the villages, the desert stretches into darkness, silent and patient beneath the stars. The air feels different now. The heat that ruled the day has slowly drifted away. A cooler breeze moves along the riverbanks. Reeds sway gently. Palm leaves whisper overhead. Most people are asleep. Farmers rest tired muscles after long hours in the fields. Builders sleep with aching shoulders. Fishermen recover from another day on the water. Mothers and fathers lie beside their children. The entire valley seems wrapped in calm. Only the Nile continues moving. Its quiet flow never truly stops. Year after year. Century after century. Generation after generation. The river remains one of the few constant companions in Egyptian life. A child may grow old beside it. A village may expand beside it. A ruler may rise and fall beside it. Yet the water continues its journey exactly as before. This constancy shapes the way people understand the world. Many things feel dependable. Many things feel permanent. And when a society grows beside a dependable river for thousands of years, it often becomes dependable itself. Far before sunrise, movement begins again. A few workers wake while the stars still shine overhead. Some occupations demand early hours. Bakers are among the first to rise. Inside a small workshop, a man prepares the day's dough. The room is dim. The smell of grain fills the air. Large storage jars stand against the walls. Grinding stones wait nearby. The baker's work begins long before most people awaken. Bread will be needed throughout the day. Families will expect it. Workers will depend upon it. Markets will sell it. Temples may receive it as offerings. The demand never disappears. So the baker repeats the same familiar routine. Mixing. Kneading. Preparing. Waiting. His hands know exactly what to do. Years of practice guide every movement. Outside, darkness slowly gives way to dawn. The eastern sky brightens. Birds begin calling from the riverbanks. The world awakens once again. Soon the streets fill with activity. A young boy follows his father toward the fields. He carries a small tool. His steps are shorter. His legs move quickly to keep pace. For now, he mostly observes. He watches. He listens. He learns. This is how many children receive their education. Not from books. Not from classrooms. But from daily life itself. Knowledge lives within routines. A farmer teaches farming by farming. A fisherman teaches fishing by fishing. A craftsman teaches craftsmanship by working beside an apprentice. Lessons unfold naturally. Day after day. Year after year. There is rarely a sharp separation between learning and living. The two are woven together. The boy may not realize it, but he is already preparing for adulthood. Every morning spent beside his father adds another small piece of understanding. How to recognize healthy crops. How to judge the condition of soil. How to work steadily through the heat. How to endure difficult days. Such lessons cannot always be written down. They must be experienced. The fields glow softly beneath the early sunlight. A light mist lingers in some low areas near the water. The air smells fresh. For a brief moment, before the sun climbs higher, the countryside feels gentle and cool. Farmers appreciate these hours. The hardest heat remains far away. Work feels easier now. Voices carry clearly across the fields. Birds search for food among the crops. The day begins peacefully. Across Egypt, countless similar scenes unfold. The same routines. The same responsibilities. The same rhythms. This repetition forms the foundation of society. It may appear ordinary. Yet it helps explain why Egypt remains so stable over long periods of time. Many civilizations experience rapid changes. Ancient Egypt often changes more slowly. Part of the reason lies in daily life. When routines function well, people see little reason to abandon them. When harvests arrive reliably, traditions gain strength. When familiar methods continue producing results, they earn trust. Trust becomes habit. Habit becomes culture. Culture becomes continuity. As the morning advances, workers spread across the landscape. Some travel to fields. Others move toward workshops. Others head for river docks. The Nile serves as the great highway of Egypt. Boats move constantly along its waters. Some carry grain. Some carry stone. Some carry pottery. Some transport passengers. The river makes travel easier than journeys across rough desert terrain. A merchant loading supplies onto a boat performs a task repeated countless times before. Bundles are lifted. Cargo is arranged. Ropes are secured. Nothing feels unusual. The process is familiar. The merchant knows what to expect. The boat captain knows what to expect. The workers know what to expect. The system functions because everyone understands their role. Ancient Egyptian society depends heavily upon these shared expectations. People know where they fit within the larger structure. Responsibilities are generally clear. Traditions provide guidance. Community reinforces behavior. The result is a culture that often values stability over sudden change. By late morning, sunlight brightens every corner of the valley. The river sparkles. The fields shimmer. The walls of temples glow beneath the sun. Stone monuments appear almost timeless. Many have stood for generations. Some will stand for generations more. To ordinary people, these structures may feel permanent. Children grow up seeing them. Adults spend entire lives beside them. Grandparents remember them from their own childhoods. The monuments seem unchanged. Their presence quietly reinforces the idea of continuity. The past remains visible. It surrounds daily life. A farmer walking toward his fields may pass ancient structures built long before his birth. A merchant may conduct business beneath walls raised by earlier generations. History does not feel distant. It feels present. It exists alongside everyday routines. Near one settlement, a group of builders works beneath the growing heat. The labor is difficult. Stone is heavy. Tools are simple. Progress comes slowly. A single task may require enormous patience. Yet patience is something many workers understand well. Ancient Egyptian life often rewards endurance. Large projects unfold over years. Sometimes decades. People become accustomed to gradual progress. A wall rises one stone at a time. A canal extends one section at a time. A harvest grows one day at a time. The rhythm of life teaches patience. And patience encourages stability. At midday, the heat becomes powerful once again. The desert beyond the green valley appears almost white beneath the brightness. The air feels thick and still. Workers seek shade whenever possible. A few moments of rest become valuable. Conversations quiet. Movement slows. Bodies conserve energy. An elderly farmer sits beneath a tree. His face shows decades of experience. The lines around his eyes tell a story of many seasons spent outdoors. He watches younger workers moving through nearby fields. Much has changed during his lifetime. Children have grown into adults. Neighbors have come and gone. New homes have appeared. Old homes have disappeared. Yet many things remain familiar. The river still floods. The crops still grow. The seasons still return. The same cycle continues. This continuity creates a sense of reassurance. The future may contain uncertainty. But the larger rhythms endure. As afternoon unfolds, workshops remain busy. Inside one weaving room, workers create cloth using methods refined over generations. The process requires concentration. Hands move carefully. Threads cross and tighten. Patterns slowly emerge. The work is repetitive. Yet repetition does not necessarily feel unpleasant. Many skilled workers find comfort in familiar tasks. The body learns the motions. The mind settles into rhythm. Hours pass quietly. The same is true in many occupations throughout Egypt. Potters shape clay. Carpenters smooth wood. Metal workers repair tools. Their labor follows predictable patterns. These patterns structure daily life. And structured lives often create stable societies. Later, as the sun begins descending toward the horizon, the atmosphere softens once again. Long shadows stretch across roads and fields. The brightest heat fades. Workers feel relief. The end of the workday approaches. Boats head toward shore. Animals return to shelters. Families begin gathering. The village slowly transforms. Evening carries a different energy. The urgency of labor disappears. People breathe more easily. Neighbors stop to talk. Children laugh and play. Food is prepared. The smell of cooking drifts through the streets. These evening moments may seem small, yet they matter deeply. They strengthen social bonds. They reinforce family connections. They create memories. A society is not sustained only by work. It is sustained by relationships. Ancient Egyptian communities rely heavily upon cooperation. Families support one another. Neighbors assist one another. Knowledge passes between generations. Customs are shared. Values are reinforced. All of these quiet interactions help preserve continuity. As darkness gradually returns, stars begin appearing overhead. One by one. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The sky becomes vast once more. People sit outside their homes enjoying the cooler air. Stories are told. Experiences are shared. The younger generation listens. The older generation remembers. The cycle continues. A child hears a story that an elder once heard from someone else. The chain stretches backward through time. Farther and farther. Across decades. Across centuries. The past remains alive through memory. Eventually the village grows quiet. Families prepare for sleep. Doors close. Lamps burn low. The sounds of conversation fade into silence. Only the river remains awake. Its waters move softly beneath the moonlight. Past fields waiting for dawn. Past boats resting at shore. Past villages wrapped in darkness. And as another peaceful night settles across ancient Egypt, the familiar rhythms continue their endless cycle, carrying ordinary people gently from one day to the next within a world that feels steady, dependable, and comfortingly unchanged beneath the watchful stars. The stars shine quietly above the Nile. Their reflections tremble upon the dark water, stretching and breaking with every gentle movement of the river. Along the banks, reeds sway in the night breeze. The desert beyond remains silent beneath the moonlight. Most of Egypt sleeps. Inside modest homes built from mud brick and river clay, families rest after another long day. The air is warm but comfortable. Children sleep beside parents. Elderly relatives rest nearby. The sounds of breathing fill small rooms. Outside, the village appears almost frozen in time. The same narrow paths. The same walls. The same storage jars standing beside doorways. The same animals sleeping in their enclosures. Night hides many details, but it also reveals something else. How quiet ancient life could be. Without the noise of modern machines, the darkness belongs mostly to nature. Wind moving through reeds. Water touching shore. An occasional bird calling in the distance. The soft rustle of palm leaves overhead. These sounds form the background of countless Egyptian nights. Generations fall asleep listening to them. Generations wake hearing them once again. As midnight slowly passes, the air grows cooler. The desert releases some of the heat it absorbed during the day. The change is subtle but welcome. Workers who spent hours beneath the sun rest deeply now. Many of them will rise before dawn. Their bodies have learned this rhythm. Sleep comes early. Morning arrives early. The cycle repeats. And because it repeats so consistently, daily life develops a certain steadiness. In many ways, Egypt is a civilization built upon repetition. Not boring repetition. Not empty repetition. But meaningful repetition. The repetition of planting and harvesting. The repetition of baking and eating. The repetition of building and repairing. The repetition of parents teaching children. Life continues because these patterns continue. Far away, near a larger town, a night watchman walks slowly through quiet streets. His sandals scrape softly against packed earth. He carries a small lamp. The flame flickers in the darkness. Most people will never notice his work. If he performs his duties well, nothing unusual happens. The streets remain safe. The town remains peaceful. Like many occupations in Egypt, his work contributes to stability. Ancient societies depend upon countless individuals performing small responsibilities every day. No single task seems extraordinary. Together they create order. Order is one of the great themes of Egyptian life. Not only political order, not only religious order, but practical order. The order of daily routines. The order of seasonal cycles. The order of knowing what tomorrow will probably bring. As the darkest hours of the night begin to fade, dawn slowly approaches once again. The eastern horizon becomes lighter. At first, the change is almost impossible to notice. Then gradually the darkness retreats. Shapes emerge from shadow. Trees become visible. Buildings take form. The river reflects the first hints of morning light. A new day begins. One by one, villagers awaken. A mother sits up and stretches. A farmer rubs sleep from tired eyes. A child turns over on a sleeping mat before finally waking. The transition happens quietly. There is no sudden rush. The village slowly comes back to life. Soon fires are lit. Thin columns of smoke rise into the brightening sky. The familiar smell of bread preparation returns. Grinding stones begin their daily work. The sound is steady and rhythmic. Stone against stone. Again and again. For many women, grinding grain occupies a significant part of daily life. The task requires strength and patience. It is not glamorous. It is not celebrated. Yet it is essential. Without flour, there is no bread. Without bread, families struggle. The ordinary tasks often matter most. History sometimes remembers kings and monuments. But daily survival depends upon countless unnoticed efforts. As sunlight spreads across the valley, people begin moving toward their work. The roads fill gradually. A fisherman carries nets toward the river. A merchant arranges goods for transport. Laborers gather tools. Children help with smaller chores. The day unfolds according to familiar patterns. Near the riverbank, a young fisherman prepares a small boat. The wood smells faintly of water and age. His hands move confidently. He has learned these skills from older relatives. Every knot, every rope, every net, every movement. Knowledge has been passed down carefully. This transfer of practical experience happens everywhere in Egypt. It is one reason traditions remain strong. People trust what has worked before. Methods survive because they continue producing results. The fisherman pushes away from shore. The boat glides into calm water. Morning sunlight sparkles across the surface. Birds circle overhead. The river appears peaceful. Yet beneath this peaceful appearance lies tremendous importance. The Nile supports nearly every aspect of life. Food, transportation, agriculture, trade, communication. The river influences everything. And because the river remains relatively predictable, life remains relatively predictable as well. A farmer may not know exactly how much grain he will harvest. A merchant may not know exactly how profitable a journey will be. Yet most people trust that the Nile will continue flowing. That confidence shapes their understanding of the world. Throughout the morning, activity increases. Markets grow busier. Workshops become louder. Fields fill with workers. The smell of dust rises from roads. Animals move through settlements carrying supplies. A donkey loaded with baskets passes through a narrow street. Children step aside to let it pass. The scene is ordinary. Thousands of similar moments occur every day. Most are never recorded. Most leave no trace. Yet together they form the true fabric of history. The lives of ordinary people are built from countless small moments. A conversation beside a doorway. A shared meal. A repaired tool. A harvested field. A fishing trip. A walk to the river. These experiences shape daily existence far more than distant political events. As the sun climbs higher, the heat returns. The valley grows brighter. Workers wipe sweat from their brows. The pace remains steady. No one expects comfort from the climate. The Egyptian sun can be demanding. People adapt accordingly. Loose clothing helps. Shade becomes valuable. Water becomes precious. Experience teaches practical wisdom. Young workers learn these lessons quickly. Older workers already know them well. In one workshop, a carpenter shapes wood into furniture. The scent of freshly cut timber fills the air. Wood is valuable in Egypt. Large forests are uncommon. Many wooden items require careful use of limited resources. The carpenter works slowly. Mistakes waste material. Precision matters. Each cut is deliberate. Each measurement considered. Patience again proves important. Throughout Egyptian society, patience appears again and again. The environment encourages it. Agriculture requires it. Construction requires it. Craftsmanship requires it. People learn to think in longer periods of time. Not every result arrives immediately. Many worthwhile things develop gradually. The afternoon arrives. Heat settles heavily over the landscape. The bright sunlight seems almost endless. Even the river appears sleepy beneath the warmth. Many workers seek brief moments of rest. A group of laborers gathers beneath a patch of shade. They share food. They talk quietly. Their conversation concerns familiar topics. The condition of crops. A neighbor's health. Upcoming work. Family matters. Ordinary concerns fill most lives. These discussions sound much the same from one generation to the next. The details change. The themes remain. As afternoon slowly gives way to evening, relief finally approaches. The sun begins its descent. The light softens. Long shadows stretch across the land. The air becomes easier to breathe. Workers complete final tasks. Animals are guided home. The day's labor comes to an end. A fisherman returns with his catch. A farmer carries tools back toward the village. A merchant closes a stall. One by one, daily responsibilities fade into the background. Evening belongs to rest. Cooking fires appear throughout the settlement. The smell of food fills the air. Families gather. The atmosphere becomes warm and social. Children tell stories about their day. Parents listen. Grandparents offer advice. Neighbors exchange greetings. These simple interactions strengthen the community. And strong communities contribute to stability. People support one another. They share knowledge. They share responsibilities. They share traditions. Generation after generation. The same values continue. The same customs survive. The same rhythms endure. As darkness slowly returns, the Nile reflects the colors of sunset. Gold becomes orange. Orange becomes red. Red becomes purple. Then eventually the sky deepens toward night. The transformation happens gradually. There is no hurry. The river accepts each change quietly. Much like Egypt itself. For centuries, change often arrives slowly. Almost gently. New rulers may appear. New buildings may rise. New ideas may travel into the land. Yet daily life continues with remarkable consistency. A farmer still wakes before sunrise. A baker still prepares dough. A fisherman still launches a boat. A child still learns from parents. The familiar rhythms remain. Stars appear overhead once more. The village settles into silence. Doors close. Lamps glow softly behind walls. The day's work is finished. Bodies relax. Voices fade. The desert waits quietly beyond a fertile valley. The Nile continues its endless journey through darkness. And beneath the peaceful night sky, countless ordinary Egyptians drift into sleep, surrounded by the comforting routines, familiar traditions, and steady rhythms that have shaped their world for generations beyond memory. The night over Egypt feels deeper now. Not because anything has changed, but because everything has settled more fully into stillness. The river keeps moving, yet even its motion seems softer in the darkness. The wind passes gently over the reeds without hurry. The desert holds its silence like something ancient and patient. In the villages, sleep continues without interruption. Homes made of mud brick hold warmth from the day inside their thick walls. Families lie close together on woven mats. The air inside is calm and slightly heavy, filled with the faint smell of earth, smoke, and grain. Nothing moves except the slow rhythm of breathing. Outside, a single dog crosses a narrow path and disappears into shadow. Then there is quiet again. This quiet is familiar in ancient Egypt. It is not empty. It is full of life resting after work. Full of bodies recovering. Full of minds drifting without urgency. Full of the world simply waiting for morning. Far from the villages, the Nile reflects the sky in fragments of silver light. The moon is high now. Its reflection breaks gently across the water whenever a small ripple passes through. A boat tied to the bank shifts slightly with the current, ropes creaking softly. Even in sleep, Egypt feels connected to the river. The river is never fully absent from thought. It is the beginning of work and the end of work. It is morning movement and evening return. It is the reason fields exist where desert should be. Without it, life would not gather here in such density. Without it, these quiet villages would not stretch along its banks like beads on a long thread. And so even at night, even in silence, the river feels like presence rather than background. As the hours pass slowly, a few people remain awake. Not many. Only those whose work belongs to the night. A potter near a town checks a kiln that has been cooling since evening. He does it carefully, without haste. The heat still lingers inside the clay walls. He does not open it fully. He only watches, waits, and listens. His work is patience itself. Clay must cool at its own pace. Fire cannot be rushed. If handled too quickly, it cracks. If disturbed too early, it weakens. So he waits, as he has learned to wait many times before. Nearby, a guard sits near a storage area where grain is kept. The night is quiet, but he remains alert in a soft, steady way. Not tense. Not afraid. Simply aware. His lamp burns low beside him, casting a small circle of light on the ground. Beyond that circle, the world is dark. He hears distant water. He hears insects in the dry grass. He hears nothing else. This is normal. Most nights are like this. And most nights end without incident. Time passes slowly for those awake in the dark. Each moment feels longer, stretched by silence. Yet even this slow passing has its own comfort. The guard knows the shape of the night. He knows when the coldest hour arrives. He knows when the first hint of dawn will appear. Egyptians often learn to recognize these rhythms without needing tools or clocks. The body itself becomes the measure of time. The sky becomes the guide. And so the night continues. Eventually, somewhere far in the east, a faint change begins again. Not bright. Not sudden. Just a softening. The sky shifts from deep black towards something less heavy. The stars remain, but they feel slightly less sharp. The air carries a hint of returning warmth. Dawn is approaching once more. In the villages, people begin to stir again in small, quiet movements. A hand adjusts a blanket. A child turns in sleep. A man opens his eyes without speaking. The transition is gentle, almost unnoticeable. There is no alarm. There is no rush. This is how life works here. It rises slowly, like the sun itself. Outside, the first birds return to the riverbanks. Their calls are soft at first, uncertain, then gradually more confident. The sound spreads through reeds and trees, touching every corner of the waking land. The fisherman who lives closest to the water is already moving again. He does not think about it in detail. His body simply follows habit. Net, boat, rope, water. These things form the shape of his morning without needing instruction. He pushes the boat into the river. The water is cooler now than it was yesterday afternoon. It carries the memory of night. The surface is smooth, almost glass-like, disturbed only by the slow movement of his oar. Above him, the sky brightens further. This moment between night and day is always quiet in a particular way. Not silent, but softened. The world feels like it has not yet fully decided to become active. In this half-light, Egypt appears especially calm. Back inland, smoke begins to rise again from cooking fires. The smell of bread returns to the air. Stone grinding tools begin their steady sound once more. Life resumes without interruption, as if it never fully stopped. A young child sits near a doorway watching his mother prepare grain. He watches closely, as children often do. He learns without knowing he is learning. The shape of her movements. The timing of her actions. The small pauses between steps. All of it becomes part of him. He will remember these things later in life, even if he does not realize it. Across the settlement, similar scenes unfold. Families preparing food. Workers gathering tools. Animals being guided out. Doors opening. Paths filling. The village slowly expanding into morning activity. Yet even in movement, there is no urgency. Everything feels measured. Everything feels known. Ancient Egypt is often described through its monuments, its kings, and its long stretches of recorded history. But beneath all of that, the deeper reality is something quieter. A civilization held together by repetition. By daily survival. By predictable cycles that shaped how people lived, thought, and moved through time. The farmer does not think about dynasties when he steps into his field. He thinks about soil. He thinks about water. He thinks about whether the season will bring enough growth. The scribe does not think about future eras when he sits with his brush. He thinks about accuracy. He thinks about records. He thinks about the steady flow of information that must be preserved. The baker does not think about the meaning of civilization. He thinks about heat. He thinks about timing. He thinks about whether the bread will rise correctly today, as it did yesterday. Life is immediate. Life is close. Life is repeated. And in that repetition, Egypt finds its long stability. As the sun climbs higher again, the river becomes brighter. The fields stretch outward in green and gold patterns. The desert remains unchanged beyond them, vast and patient. People move through their tasks as they always do. Some carry water. Some repair tools. Some tend animals. Some travel between villages along familiar paths. There is a sense that everything has its place. Not in a strict or forced way, but in a natural way shaped by long experience. The world has been organized by necessity over thousands of years. And so it feels settled. By midday, the familiar heat returns. The sky becomes strong with light. Shadows shorten. The air grows still again. Movement slows where possible. People rest in shade. Work continues only where it must. A group of workers sits beneath a simple structure near a field. Their tools rest beside them. They drink water and eat bread. Conversation is quiet, unhurried. One speaks briefly about a repair needed on a canal wall. Another mentions a family matter. A third simply watches the horizon where heat shimmers above the land. There is no sense of urgency in their voices. Problems are real, but they are familiar. They have been solved before. they will be solved again. This confidence comes not from wealth or power, but from repetition. From knowing that life has always continued. As afternoon begins its slow descent, the light softens again. The edges of the world become less harsh. Color returns to the landscape. The river glows again in gentle reflection. Work moves toward completion. People begin to think about home. About food. About rest. The same rhythm repeats. Always the same. And yet never exactly the same. Because each day carries small differences. A slightly different sky. A slightly different breeze. A slightly different conversation. A slightly different feeling in the air. But these differences remain small enough not to disturb the larger pattern. The pattern remains. Evening returns once more. And with it, the familiar gathering of lives. Families come together again beside small fires. Food is shared. Stories drift softly between people. Children lean against adults. Elders watch quietly. The river flows beside them as it always does. The stars will rise again as they always do. And the world, in its slow and steady way, will continue forward without breaking its gentle rhythm. In ancient Egypt, life does not feel like a series of dramatic shifts. It feels like a long breath. In. And out. Over and over again. And as another night begins to settle over the Nile, that breath continues, soft and steady, carrying every sleeping village once more into the calm that waits between one day and the next. Night returns again over the Nile, as it always does, without hesitation and without sound. The sky darkens slowly, like ink spreading across water. One layer of light fades, then another, until only the faint glow of stars remains. The river reflects them in broken pieces, as if the sky above and the sky below are gently sharing the same quiet breath. Along the banks, the wind moves lightly through the reeds. It is the same wind that has moved here for thousands of years. It carries no message. It asks for nothing. It simply passes through the land and disappears into the desert. In the villages, life has already softened into sleep again. Doors are closed. Lamps are low. Families lie close together in small rooms that hold the warmth of the day. A child sleeps with one arm resting over a woven mat. An older man lies still, his breathing slow and steady. A woman turns slightly in her sleep and then becomes still again. Everything returns to rest. There is something deeply consistent about these nights in ancient Egypt. They do not feel like endings. They feel like pauses. Like the world gently setting itself down before beginning again. Even time seems to rest here. Not stop. Just rest. Far away from the villages, near the edge of the cultivated land where fields meet the desert, a lone traveler moves slowly along a familiar path. He is not lost. He is simply late. His journey has taken longer than expected, but he does not hurry. In Egypt, movement at night is careful. The ground is uneven in places. The darkness hides small changes in terrain. So he walks with patience, guided by memory and the faint outline of the stars above. He knows this road. He has traveled it before. And even if he had not, the river would guide him. The Nile is never far away in this region. Its presence can be felt even when it cannot be seen. A faint smell of water in the air. A slight softness in the wind. A change in the sound of insects near the banks. The traveler pauses for a moment. He listens. The night is calm. No danger is felt here. Only stillness. So he continues forward. Life in ancient Egypt often moves through such quiet moments. Not dramatic journeys. Not constant movement. But small passages between places that are already known. Between home and field. Between village and river. Between work and rest. Even travel feels familiar. Even distance feels gentle. As the night deepens further, a few homes still hold faint light. Not bright flames, but small, low lamps that flicker softly behind walls. These lights do not push against the darkness. They exist within it, like small points of warmth. Inside one home, an elder sits awake for a short while longer. Sleep comes more slowly with age. He sits near the doorway, looking out into the night. He does not think in hurried ways. His thoughts move slowly, like the river itself. He remembers fields from many years ago. He remembers people who are no longer here. He remembers seasons that felt long at the time but now seem brief in memory. Yet these memories are not heavy. They are simply present. Like stones resting quietly at the bottom of a river. He listens to the world outside. Insects. Wind. The distant movement of water. All of it familiar. All of it unchanged. He has lived long enough to see small changes in life, but not enough to feel that the world has become different in its essence. The river still floods. The fields still grow. The sun still rises and sets with steady certainty. So he sits calmly. And when he finally feels the pull of sleep, he stands and returns inside. The lamp is lowered. The home becomes dark again. The night continues. Hours pass without event. This is the nature of most nights in ancient Egypt. Not empty. Not tense. Simply steady. And then, as always, something subtle begins again in the eastern sky. The first suggestion of return. Not light yet. Only the softest shift in darkness. A change so gentle it might be mistaken for imagination. But it is not. Dawn is approaching once more. The village begins to stir in small ways before the light fully arrives. A turning of a body. A quiet breath. A hand reaching for a blanket. The earliest movements of wakefulness. No one speaks yet. There is no need. The rhythm is understood without words. Soon, the baker is already moving. His oven must be prepared before others wake fully. Dough must be ready. Heat must be controlled carefully. His work begins while most of the world still rests in the final layers of sleep. He is not alone. Across the settlement, others begin similar early routines. A water carrier checks his jars. A fisherman prepares his nets. A scribe organizes his tools for the day ahead. Each person steps gently back into their role, as if returning to a path they never truly left. The transition from night to day is smooth. There is no break between worlds. Only a gradual shift. And in that shift, Egypt reveals one of its most defining qualities. Continuity. Life does not restart each morning. It resumes. Outside the village, the river reflects the growing light. Its surface becomes brighter, slowly revealing the shape of banks, boats, and reeds. Birds return in small groups, calling softly as they search for food along the water's edge. The air carries a coolness that will not last long. Soon, heat will arrive again. But for now, everything feels gentle. Even labor, when it begins, feels easier in these early hours. Farmers walk toward fields with steady steps. Tools rest comfortably in their hands. The ground beneath them is cool and firm. A young worker follows an older one along a narrow path. He carries nothing heavy yet. His task is to observe and assist. He watches how the older man checks the condition of the soil. How he studies the moisture near the irrigation channels. How he makes small decisions without speaking much. These are lessons that do not require instruction. Only attention. And time. In Egypt, learning is slow but constant. It happens through repetition, not interruption. Through presence, not explanation. The boy will not remember a single moment as the moment he learned. Instead, he will carry thousands of small moments inside him until they become understanding. As the sun rises higher, the village grows fully awake. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The smell of bread returns again. Water is carried. Animals are guided. Doors open and close. The rhythm of daily life resumes completely. And once again, it feels as though it never stopped. The fields stretch outward under the strengthening light. Green plants sway gently in the breeze. Narrow irrigation paths carry water slowly through the land, feeding crops that depend entirely on the river's generosity. Everything here is connected. The river, the soil, the labor, the people. A farmer kneels beside a field for a moment, touching the earth with his fingers. He feels its texture. He understands it without needing words. This understanding has been passed down through generations of hands that have done the same thing. There is knowledge here that does not change quickly. Because the land itself does not change quickly. And so life remains aligned with it. As the day unfolds once more, the familiar patterns continue. Work. Rest. Work again. Then rest again. A cycle that never feels like it begins or ends. Only continues. By midday, the sun stands high and strong once more. The heat returns in full. Movement slows. Shade becomes important again. The world grows still in its bright intensity. But even here, nothing feels unfamiliar. This is simply what the day becomes. And later, as afternoon softens into evening, the same gentle return will happen again. The same cooling of air. The same gathering of people. The same quiet conversations. The same slow descent into night. It will not feel like repetition. It will feel like life itself. And in ancient Egypt, life continues in this way, steady, familiar, and deeply connected to every previous day, like a long and unbroken river moving quietly through time, carrying everything forward without ever needing to rush. The evening in ancient Egypt arrives the way it always does, without effort, without announcement, without change in its rhythm. Light begins to soften across the Nile Valley. The harsh brightness of midday slowly loosens its grip on the land, and the world seems to exhale. Shadows stretch longer across the fields. The river begins to reflect warmer tones again, as if remembering the colors of sunrise in reverse. People notice this shift without needing to speak about it. It is simply felt. Work begins to slow in small, natural ways. Not because anyone commands it, but because the day itself seems to encourage rest. Farmers finish what can be finished. Builders step back from their tasks. Fishermen turn their boats toward shore. The village prepares for the return home. This moment, repeated every day, carries a quiet comfort. There is always an ending to the labor. And there is always a return. Along a narrow path between fields, a group of workers walks together. Their footsteps are steady, unhurried. Dust rises gently around their sandals and then settles again. No one speaks loudly. Their voices, when they come, are low and calm. One man carries a tool over his shoulder. Another wipes sweat from his forehead. A third simply looks toward the river in silence. They have done this journey before. Many times. And they will do it again. The repetition of movement is not seen as emptiness. It is seen as life taking its proper shape. In the distance, the Nile glows softly under the lowering sun. Boats move slowly along its surface, their silhouettes dark against the golden water. Some carry grain from fields. Some carry people returning home. Some carry nothing at all, drifting gently as if part of the river itself. Everything returns to the water eventually. Everything begins there and comes back there. By the time the sun reaches the horizon, the entire landscape feels different. Not changed, but softened. The heat releases its hold on the earth. Stones cool gradually. The air becomes easier to breathe. Even the desert beyond the green valley seems less harsh, as if it too is resting after a long day of watching. In the villages, evening life begins to gather. Fires are lit once more. Smoke rises in thin, familiar lines. The smell of cooking returns, drifting through narrow streets and open courtyards. Bread is prepared. Simple meals are shared. Water jars are passed from hand to hand. This is the hour when people come back together. After the separation of work, there is reunion. Families sit close to one another. Children settle beside parents. Elders rest in shaded corners, watching quietly as the day fades. Conversations begin slowly. Not urgent. Not complex. Just small exchanges about the day that has passed. The condition of fields. The success of fishing nets. The repair of a tool. The arrival of a neighbor. These are the stories of ordinary life. And they are enough. Because in a stable world, there is comfort in small updates. Nothing must be reinvented. Nothing must be urgently changed. Life is already understood. As night approaches again, the sky shifts gradually from gold to deep blue. Then to darker shades. The first stars appear without fanfare, as they always do, one by one, returning to their familiar places above the land. The river reflects them again. A mirror of slow light and quiet movement. In one small household near the edge of a village, a woman sits outside for a moment longer before sleep. She listens to the night settling around her. She hears the faint movement of wind through palm trees. She hears the distant sound of water. Her hands rest in her lap. Her body is tired, but not troubled. The day has been long, but expected. There were no surprises that could not be managed. This, too, is part of the quiet structure of life here. Predictability does not remove difficulty, but it makes difficulty familiar. And what is familiar becomes easier to carry. She stands slowly and returns inside. The lamp is lowered. The home becomes still. Outside, the village sinks deeper into night once more. Far away, along the riverbank, a small group of boats remains tied together. They shift slightly with the current, ropes tightening and loosening with the gentle movement of water. A fisherman checks them one last time before resting. Everything is in place. Everything is as it should be. The river continues its slow passage through darkness, carrying reflections of stars and silence together. It moves with a patience that seems almost timeless. As the night deepens, Egypt feels suspended in calm. Not frozen. Not inactive. But gently resting between cycles. The people sleep. The land cools. The wind moves softly across fields that will soon be worked again. And somewhere in the quiet space between waking and sleeping, life continues in its steady rhythm, unchanged in its essence, carried forward by repetition, memory, and the long, unbroken familiarity of days shaped by the Nile. In this way, ancient Egypt does not feel like a place that resists change. It feels like a place that absorbs time slowly. Like water soaking into earth. Like sunlight warming stone. Like breath moving in and out without hurry. And as another deep night settles across the valley, everything once again returns to stillness, waiting gently for the next morning to arrive exactly as it always has, and exactly as it always will. The night in ancient Egypt continues without interruption. It does not feel like something moving forward quickly. It feels like something that spreads gently, covering the land in a soft and familiar stillness. The Nile lies dark and quiet now, reflecting only faint traces of starlight. The current continues beneath the surface, steady and patient, but from the shore it appears almost motionless. The world has slowed to its most peaceful state. Inside the villages, sleep is deep. The homes are simple, and in that simplicity there is a certain calm. Mud brick walls hold the warmth of the day for a while longer before slowly releasing it into the cooler air. Woven mats rest on packed earth floors. Small clay jars sit near doorways. Everything is in its place. Nothing needs to be moved. Nothing needs to be changed. The night asks for nothing. And so people rest. Far from the sleeping homes, a lone ox shifts its weight in a small enclosure. It exhales slowly, then becomes still again. Nearby, a goat lies curled against the ground, barely visible in the darkness. These small lives also follow the rhythm of the night, quiet and steady. Above them, the sky stretches wide and unchanged. The same constellations appear that have always appeared. The same stars that guided farmers and travelers for generations continue to shine in their familiar patterns. They offer no message, no urgency. Only presence. In ancient Egypt, the sky is not separate from daily life. It is part of it. A steady companion that returns every night without fail. As hours pass, the deepest part of the night arrives. This is the quietest moment. The air cools slightly more. The wind becomes even softer. Even distant sounds seem to pause for a while, as if the world itself is resting more fully. In one small house near the river, a fisherman sleeps lightly. His body is accustomed to waking before dawn. Even in rest, part of him remains aware of the rhythm of the river. Not in thought, but in habit. If the water changes, he will know. If the morning shifts, he will feel it. This connection between people and their environment is quiet but constant. Life beside the Nile teaches awareness without effort. Over time, it becomes instinct. Time passes in slow layers. The night does not rush toward morning. It simply unfolds. And then, at some point that is difficult to mark, something subtle begins again. The eastern horizon begins to soften. The darkness is still present, but it is no longer complete. It carries the faintest suggestion of return. A gentle thinning at the edge of night. Dawn does not arrive suddenly in Egypt. It arrives like memory returning. Softly. Gradually. Without disruption. In the villages, small movements begin again. A hand shifts a blanket. A body turns slightly. A child stirs and then becomes still again. There is no need for words. The rhythm is understood deeply by everyone who lives here. The day will begin soon. Not because it is demanded, but because it always does. Near the river, the first fisherman rises. He does not hesitate. His actions are practiced and familiar. The boat, the net, the rope. Each object has its place in the sequence of his morning. He does not need to think through each step. His body already knows. He pushes the boat into the water. The river accepts him without resistance. The surface is calm, touched only by the faint movement of the oar. The sky above him slowly lightens, revealing the shape of reeds along the banks and distant outlines of fields. Birds begin to return. Their calls are soft at first, then gradually more frequent as more of them wake. The world is waking, but gently. In the village, smoke begins to rise again from early cooking fires. The smell of grain returns to the air. Grinding stones begin their steady rhythm once more. Bread will be prepared again, as it was yesterday, and as it will be tomorrow. Inside a home, a child sits quietly near a doorway, watching a parent work. There is no lesson being formally given. Yet everything is being learned. The shape of movement. The timing of actions. The calm repetition of tasks. These observations will remain with the child long after this morning has passed. They will become part of how life is understood. As sunlight grows stronger, the village expands into full activity again. People move along familiar paths, tools are gathered. Animals are guided. Water is carried. Conversations begin softly and grow slowly. There is no sharp beginning to the day. Only continuation. This is one of the quiet truths of life in ancient Egypt. Days do not restart. They resume. Across the fields, farmers walk through rows of crops. The land feels familiar beneath their feet. The irrigation channels guide water exactly as they should. The plants respond as expected. There is comfort in this predictability. A world that behaves consistently allows people to focus on work rather than uncertainty. And so attention shifts to small, manageable things. A broken tool. A dry patch of soil. A path that needs repair. Life is made of these details. Not grand events, but small, repeated actions. Farther inland, a group of workers lift stones for a building project. The effort is slow and heavy. Yet it is not chaotic. Each movement is coordinated. Each stone has a place. The structure rises gradually, almost imperceptibly. Day by day. Season by season. There is no expectation that it will be completed quickly. Time is not something to conquer here. It is something to move with. As the sun climbs higher, the familiar warmth returns. The valley brightens. The desert glows in the distance. The river reflects a strong blue light. And once again, the rhythm of the day settles into its middle phase. Work continues. Rest will come later. Then evening will arrive. Then night. Then morning again. This cycle does not feel repetitive to those living within it. It feels natural. Like breathing. Like the movement of water. Like the turning of the sky. Even though days are similar, they are never empty. Each contains its own small differences. A slightly different conversation. A different arrangement of clouds. A different moment of wind across the fields. A different feeling in the air. But these differences exist within a larger pattern that never breaks. And so the pattern becomes the true shape of life. By afternoon, heat begins to build once more. Movement slows again. Shade becomes important again. People rest where they can. A group of workers sits beneath a wall, drinking water and sharing quiet conversation. Their voices are calm. Their words are simple. Nothing urgent is discussed. Only the present moment. In time, even the heat becomes familiar. Not pleasant, but expected. Something to be endured, then passed through. And it always passes. As it always has. As it always will. Evening will arrive once more, carrying its gentle relief. The river will cool again. The sky will soften again. People will return home again. And the cycle will continue. Not because it is forced. But because it belongs. To the river. To the land. To the people. To the rhythm of a world that moves slowly, steadily, and quietly through time, like a long breath that never fully ends, only continues, again and again, beneath the calm sky of ancient Egypt. Evening returns to the Nile Valley like a familiar memory. The heat of the day begins to loosen its grip, and the land slowly breathes again. Stones that felt heavy with warmth begin to cool. The air becomes softer, easier to move through. The light shifts gently, as if the sky itself is lowering its voice. Across the fields, work begins to slow once more. Not abruptly. Not with interruption. But in small natural steps that feel almost invisible unless you are watching closely. A farmer pauses at the edge of a field and straightens his back. A group of workers sets down their tools for the final time. A fisherman pulls his boat toward shore with steady, practiced movements. The day is gently releasing everyone from its demands. This moment happens every day. And yet it never feels forced. It feels like return. Along the riverbank, water reflects the sky in deepening colors. Gold fades into amber. Amber fades into soft red. Then into a quiet blue that belongs only to evening. The Nile carries all these colors without holding onto any of them. It simply reflects. It simply moves. In a small village, families begin gathering again. Smoke rises from cooking fires scattered between homes. The smell of bread returns, along with the faint scent of roasted grain and river fish. These smells drip through narrow paths, familiar and comforting. Children run briefly between houses before settling down near doorways. Their energy fades with the day. Their voices become softer. Inside homes, preparation for the evening meal happens in practiced rhythm. There is no confusion about what must be done. Each person knows their role without needing instruction. Water is poured. Food is shared. Tools are set aside. The world narrows again to what is close and immediate. In ancient Egypt, evening is not only the end of labor. It is also the return to connection. After hours of working separately across fields, workshops, and riverbanks, people come back together. Conversations begin slowly. Not with urgency, but with ease. A man speaks about the condition of a canal. A woman mentions a neighbor's child. An elder recalls something from a previous season. Nothing is rushed. Everything is gentle. These conversations form the fabric of community life just as much as work does. They hold people together across time. As the sun sinks lower, the river grows darker and more reflective. Boats drift toward their resting places. Ropes are tied. Nets are hung to dry. The movement of the day ends one step at a time. A fisherman sits for a moment longer than usual before leaving his boat. He looks at the water. He does not speak. There is no need. The river has been with him all day. It will be with him again tomorrow. This relationship does not require explanation. It is understood through repetition, through presence, through time. Eventually he stands and walks back toward the village. The sky above him is now almost fully dark. The first stars appear, faint at first, then more clearly as night settles in. They arrive in their familiar positions, as they always do. Nothing is different. And because nothing is different, nothing feels uncertain. In the village, lamps are lit again inside homes. Small flames flicker behind clay walls. They do not push back the darkness. They simply exist within it, marking the presence of life inside. A family sits together after the meal. The room is quiet. A child leans against an adult, already half asleep. Another lies curled on a mat nearby. The older members sit in calm silence for a while before preparing for rest. There is no need for many words at this hour. The day has already been spoken through action, through labor, through shared effort, through simple routines that require no explanation. Outside, the night deepens. The wind moves slowly across the fields again, cooler now than before. It carries the scent of earth that has rested under the evening sky. The reeds along the river sway gently, their movement barely visible. The Nile continues its quiet passage. Unchanged. Uninterrupted. Unhurried. Far away from human voices, the desert stretches in stillness. It holds the memory of heat from the day, but releases it slowly into the night air. The contrast between fertile river valley and empty desert remains constant, a defining feature of this land. Life gathers near water. Stillness gathers beyond it. And both exist side by side without conflict. As hours pass, the village grows quieter. One by one, lamps are lowered. Doors close softly. Movement disappears into rest. The sounds of life fade until only the most distant noises remain. A dog shifting. A faint wind. The river. Always the river. In this stillness, time feels less like something passing and more like something resting. The world does not seem to move forward quickly or dramatically. It feels suspended in its own rhythm. A rhythm that has been known for generations. A rhythm that does not need to be questioned. Eventually, even the last signs of wakefulness fade. The village sleeps. And once again, Egypt returns fully to its night state. Not empty. Not silent in a harsh way. But calm, settled, and continuous. Above it all, the stars remain steady in their places. The same stars that have watched over countless nights. The same stars that will watch over countless more. And beneath them, the Nile continues its endless flow, carrying the memory of the day forward into the night, and the promise of morning quietly back toward the horizon. Everything continues. Everything returns. Everything remains gently the same. And in that sameness, there is a quiet kind of peace that stretches across time, as ancient Egypt rests once more between one breath and the next, between one day and another, within a world that moves slowly enough to feel almost eternal. Night settles more deeply now, as if the world is sinking into a softer layer of silence. The Nile flows through it all without interruption. Its surface is dark, but not empty. It carries faint reflections of stars and the slow movement of clouds drifting overhead. Along its banks, the land rests in quiet darkness. The villages are still. The homes are still. Even the paths between them feel undisturbed, as if no one has walked there in a long time, even though the memory of footsteps remains. In ancient Egypt, night is not feared in the way it might be elsewhere. It is simply accepted. It is part of the natural cycle, as familiar as the sunrise. People learn from childhood that darkness is not absence, but pause. So they sleep within it without resistance. Inside a small home near the river, a family rests closely together. The air inside is warm but calm. A woven mat lies across the floor. Clay jars sit quietly in the corner. The faint scent of smoke from earlier cooking still lingers in the air. A child sleeps deeply, breathing slowly. An adult lies nearby, still and steady. Outside, the wind shifts gently for a moment, brushing against the walls, then moves on. Nothing disturbs the night. Farther away, at the edge of a settlement, a lone traveler finally reaches shelter. He pauses before entering a small resting place offered by a familiar household. There is no ceremony. No formality. Only quiet acknowledgement. He removes the dust of the road from his sandals and steps inside. Inside, a dim lamp burns low. He is offered water. Perhaps a small piece of bread. Nothing more is needed. Hospitality in this world is simple, shaped by necessity and familiarity rather than abundance. The traveler sits for a short time before lying down. His journey is complete for the day. Outside, the night continues its slow passage. The river remains the only constant movement in the landscape. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply continues, as it has for as long as anyone can remember. In Egypt, the river is not just geography. It is time itself, flowing in one direction while life gathers around it in repeated cycles. Fields exist because of it. Villages exist because of it. Work exists because of it. Even the sense of stability that defines the civilization is tied to its predictable presence. As the deepest part of night passes, silence becomes more complete. Yet even in silence, life is not truly still. Somewhere near the river, a heron stands motionless in shallow water, waiting for movement beneath the surface. Its patience mirrors the patience of the land itself. It does not rush. It does not change position often. It simply waits as it always has. Farther inland, a small group of animals shifts in their sleep. A subtle movement of bodies adjusting to comfort. Then stillness again. The night holds everything gently. Time passes slowly in this world, not because it lacks change, but because change unfolds in long, almost invisible steps. Generations grow and age. Buildings rise and weather. Fields are cultivated again and again. Yet the rhythm remains recognizable. This recognition becomes a form of comfort. People do not wake each morning wondering what life will be like. They already know the shape of it. The details may vary, but the structure remains. And within that structure, there is peace. As dawn begins its earliest suggestion far beyond the horizon, the sky does not change all at once. It shifts gradually, like a thought forming before words. Darkness remains, but it begins to soften at its edges. The stars grow slightly less sharp. The air carries a hint of coolness that belongs only to early morning. In the village, sleep begins to loosen. Not because of sound. Not because of urgency, but because the body itself has learned the rhythm of the day. A hand moves slightly. A face turns toward the faintest light. Eyes open for a moment before closing again. Then, slowly, wakefulness returns. There is no alarm. No signal. Only timing shaped by repetition over countless days. The baker is already preparing to rise. His work begins before others are fully awake. Dough must be ready. Fire must be managed. Bread must be prepared for the coming day. His routine is steady, almost meditative. He moves through it without hesitation. Outside, the first birds begin to call again. Their voices are soft at first, as if unsure whether the world is ready to receive them. Then, gradually, they become more confident. The morning grows stronger. Along the river, the fisherman steps into his boat once more. The motion is familiar. Almost automatic. He unties the rope. Pushes gently away from shore. Lets the water carry him into its quiet flow. The Nile accepts him as it always does. No resistance. No change. Only continuation. Back in the village, small signs of life return again. Smoke begins to rise from cooking fires. The sound of grinding stone resumes. Doors open. Water jars are lifted. Tools are gathered. The day begins again. But it does not feel like a new beginning. It feels like continuation of something already in motion. This is the nature of life here. A long, steady thread that never seems to break. As sunlight slowly spreads across the valley, the fields emerge from shadow. Green stretches along the river in long, narrow bands of life surrounded by desert. This contrast defines everything. Where water reaches, life gathers. Where it does not, silence remains. A farmer walks along the edge of his field, inspecting the soil. He crouches briefly, touching it with his hand. He feels its texture, its moisture, its readiness. There is no need for elaborate measurement. Experience tells him what he needs to know. This knowledge is not new. It has been passed down through countless generations. And it will be passed down again. Across Egypt, similar scenes unfold without coordination. Each person doing what they have always done. Each task fitting into a larger pattern that has existed long before them. Work continues. Life continues. The river continues. And in this continuity, there is something deeply steadying. Not excitement. Not change. But calm familiarity. As the morning strengthens, the village becomes fully awake once more. The rhythm of daily life returns completely. Not as something newly started, but as something resumed. And so the cycle turns again, quietly, steadily, without end, carrying Egypt forward through time in a way that feels less like movement and more like breathing itself, slow, constant, and endlessly familiar beneath the same sky that has watched over it since the beginning of memory. The morning light settles gently over the Nile Valley, as if it has always been there and never truly arrived. The river reflects it in soft, broken patterns. Not bright and sharp, but calm and spread out, touching the water in long, quiet streaks. The fields beside it begin to show their full color again. Green against gold. Life against desert. The day is already in motion. Not starting. Just continuing. In the villages, people move through familiar paths without needing to think about direction. Their bodies already know where to go. The baker returns to his oven. The farmer walks toward his fields. The fisherman pushes again into the river. The scribe sits down with his tools. Each person enters their place like a well-known room. Nothing feels new. Everything feels remembered. Inside a small home, a woman sweeps the packed earth floor slowly. The motion is simple, repetitive, almost quiet enough to disappear into the background of the morning. Dust gathers in small lines and is carried out the doorway. Outside, Children sit near the threshold, watching the world wake up fully. They do not rush anywhere. Time for them moves in softer shapes. A passing donkey. A neighbor calling softly. The sound of water being poured into a jar. These are the sounds of ordinary life. And in ancient Egypt, ordinary life is the strongest force of all. Along a narrow road, a group of workers walks toward a construction site. Their steps are steady, unhurried. They carry tools that have been used for many seasons. Wood worn smooth by hands. Stone polished by repetition. They will spend a day moving materials again. Stone by stone. Task by task. Nothing dramatic. Nothing sudden. Just steady effort repeated across time. Near the riverbank, a fisherman pauses for a moment before casting his net. He looks at the water as if it speaks in a language he already understands. He does not expect surprises. He expects patterns. Where fish gather. When currents shift. How the river behaves at this hour of the day. This understanding is not written anywhere. It lives in memory and experience. In watching. In waiting. In repeating. He casts the net. It opens in the air like a brief shadow, then falls into the river with a soft splash. The water accepts it without resistance. Nearby, the sound of hammering begins in a workshop. Wood is shaped. Clay is prepared. Metal is adjusted. Each craft follows its own rhythm, but all share the same quality, repetition refined over time. A potter turns the wheel. A carpenter smooths a surface. A metal worker adjusts a tool. Their movements are not hurried. They are practiced. Familiar. Almost calming in their predictability. In ancient Egypt, skill is not measured by novelty, but by reliability. The ability to do something well again and again. As the sun rises higher, the heat begins to return slowly. Not yet strong, but noticeable. The air shifts. The shadows shorten. The brightness grows more direct. The land adjusts without complaint. It has always done so. Farmers know when to slow their pace. Workers know when to rest in shade. Animals seek cooler places without needing instruction. Everything responds in a shared understanding shaped by centuries of living in the same environment. By midday, the village settles into a quieter rhythm. Work continues, but with less intensity. Movement becomes more economical. Conversations become softer. People conserve energy, not because they are told to, but because they understand the pattern of the day. Heat arrives. Then patience follows. A group of laborers rests beneath the edge of a wall, where a narrow strip of shade offers relief. They drink water slowly. They do not speak much. Their silence is not emptiness. It is comfort. One man leans back and closes his eyes for a moment. The sound of distant river water reaches them faintly. Even in rest, the Nile is never far. It shapes everything, even silence. As afternoon stretches on, the brightness of the sun becomes steady again. The landscape appears almost still under its weight. Yet life continues beneath it. Subtle. Patient. Unbroken. A scribe in a shaded room writes carefully, line after line, recording numbers, names, and supplies. The brush moves steadily across papyrus. Ink flows in controlled strokes. His work is quiet, but essential. Without records, nothing large can be maintained for long. Temples. Storehouses. Communities. All depend on memory made visible. Outside, the heat slowly begins to soften again. Not suddenly, but gradually, as everything in this land tends to do. Even change arrives gently. The river catches the shifting light. It brightens again in places where the sun lowers slightly. Boats appear as small silhouettes moving slowly along its surface. Each one carries something. Goods. People. or simply the motion of daily life. As evening approaches once more, the village begins its familiar transformation. Work slows. Paths become busier with return journeys. Smoke begins to rise again from cooking fires. The smell of food returns, carried on cooling air. Children move closer to homes. Adults gather in small groups. The day begins to release its hold. And once again, the feeling emerges that this moment has always existed and will always exist. Not as repetition in a mechanical sense, but as rhythm. A rhythm that holds everything together without needing to be seen. The sun lowers toward the horizon. The sky changes slowly, almost carefully, into deeper tones. The river mirrors this transformation without resistance. Nothing resists. Everything adjusts. In a small courtyard, a family sits together for the evening meal. The food is simple. Bread. Grain. Perhaps fish or vegetables depending on the day. The taste is familiar, not surprising, but satisfying in its consistency. Conversation is quiet. Not because there is nothing to say, but because much has already been understood through the day itself. Work has been done. Needs have been met. The world has followed its expected shape. And that is enough. As darkness begins to return, lamps are lit once more inside homes. Small flames appear across the village like scattered stars on the ground. Each one marking a space of human presence within the growing night. Outside, the river darkens again. The stars begin to reappear above it. The cycle moves forward. Not forward as in progress, but forward as in continuation. And in this continuation, ancient Egypt remains what it has always been in this quiet telling of its life, a place where time moves gently, where days repeat without feeling heavy, and where existence flows like the Nile itself, steady, familiar, and endlessly calm beneath the same vast sky that never seems to change. Night settles again, as it always does, without urgency and without sound. The village fades into stillness, one home at a time. A lamp is lowered behind a wall. A doorway is closed. A final voice becomes quiet. And then, slowly, the entire settlement returns to sleep. The Nile remains the only movement. Its surface is dark, but never empty. Even in darkness, it carries a presence, a slow continuity that feels older than memory. The river does not pause for rest. It does not change its direction. It simply continues, as it has always continued. Along its banks, reeds bend slightly with the wind and then return upright. The motion is small, almost invisible in the night. The desert beyond remains completely still, holding its silence like something carefully preserved. Above it all, the sky stretches wide and familiar. The same stars appear again. The same patterns return. They do not feel distant. They feel close, as if they belong to the same rhythm as the land below them. In the villages, sleep deepens. People lie in simple arrangements within their homes. Mats on packed earth. Clay walls holding warmth. The faint smell of grain and smoke still lingering in the air. There is comfort in this closeness. In this simplicity. No one is far from anything they need. Everything is near. Everything is known. Even dreams in this world seem to follow a gentle tone. Not sharp or chaotic, but slow and flowing, like water moving through quiet channels. Outside, the night watch begins again in small, scattered places. A man walks slowly along the edge of a storage area. His steps are unhurried. The light from his lamp is small, but enough. He is not guarding against danger in a dramatic sense. He is simply maintaining presence. Order is preserved not through force, but through attention. Through steady care. Through people who remain awake so others can sleep. Farther away, near a field that has recently been harvested, the ground rests in darkness. The soil appears smooth and still. In a few months, it will be worked again. Seeds will return. Water will return. Growth will return. But for now, it rests. Rest is part of the cycle here. Not an interruption, but a necessary phase. The land itself follows it. As hours pass, the deepest part of the night arrives again. The world feels suspended. Not paused in a sudden way, but held in a long, gentle pause that stretches across everything. Even time seems less defined. Moments blend softly into one another. There is no urgency to mark them. And then, as always, something subtle begins. A shift that is almost impossible to notice at first. The eastern sky loses a fraction of its depth. Darkness becomes slightly thinner at its edge. Not light yet, but the suggestion of light. A change that belongs more to feeling than sight. Dawn is preparing to return. In a small home near the river, a woman opens her eyes briefly. She does not fully wake. She simply senses the change that comes with long familiarity. The body recognizes what the mind does not need to name. Soon, the day will begin again. But not yet. There is still softness in the night. Still a moment of rest between cycles. Outside, the river continues its slow movement. A boat that was tied during the evening shifts slightly with the current. The rope tightens and loosens in a steady rhythm. Nothing breaks. Nothing changes. Everything remains as it should. The sound of water against the shore is faint but constant. It is one of the few sounds that never disappears from this world. Even in the quietest night, it remains. As dawn approaches further, the first birds begin to stir along the riverbanks. Their calls are soft at first, uncertain, then gradually more frequent. The world responds to them slowly, as if waking in stages. The fisherman rises again before the light is fully formed. His movements are familiar now to the point of silence. Net. Rope. Boat. Water. The sequence repeats without thought. His life is shaped by repetition, and within that repetition, there is stability. He pushes the boat into the river. The water accepts him, as it always does. No hesitation. No change. Only continuation. Behind him, the village begins to awaken once more. Smoke rises from early fires. The smell of bread returns. Grinding stones begin their steady sound. Doors open. Water is carried. Tools are gathered. The cycle resumes. Not restarted. Resumed. And as sunlight begins to spread across the valley again, the fields emerge from shadow. Green rows appear beside the river. Narrow channels of water glisten in the early light. The desert stands beyond them, unchanged, waiting as it always has. Life continues in its familiar shape. A farmer walks through his field, checking the condition of the soil. A craftsman prepares his tools. A scribe arranges his materials. A merchant plans the day's movement along the river. Each person returns to what they know. Each role fits into a larger pattern that has existed for generations. There is no sense of urgency in this return. Only familiarity. Only rhythm. Only the quiet understanding that the day will unfold as it always has. Work will come. Rest will follow. Evening will arrive. Night will return. And the river will continue moving through it all, steady and patient, carrying the memory of every passing moment without ever needing to hold on to any of them. In this way, ancient Egypt remains gently unchanged, not because nothing happens, but because everything happens within a rhythm that never breaks. A rhythm that feels less like history, and more like breathing. Slow. Steady. Endless. And as the morning light strengthens once more over the Nile, the world continues forward in its calm and familiar motion, as it always has, and as it always will, beneath the quiet sky that watches without ever needing to change. Morning settles across the Nile Valley once again, as if it never truly left. The light is soft at first, spreading gently over fields and rooftops, touching the river in long, calm reflections. Nothing in the landscape feels new. It only feels revealed again, like something familiar being seen after a short rest. The village is already awake in its usual way. Not all at once. Not with sudden movement. But in quiet stages that unfold naturally, one household after another. A door opens and then stays open. A figure steps outside and pauses for a moment in the early air. A child follows shortly after, still half wrapped in sleep. Somewhere nearby, a cooking fire is already beginning to glow. Everything resumes. The baker is among the first to be fully active. His work begins before the village becomes noisy. Dough is prepared with steady hands. The oven holds warmth from earlier fires. The smell of grain returns to the air in a soft, comforting way. Bread is not just food here. It is the base of the day. The thing that quietly supports everything else. As he works, he does not think beyond the present steps. Mixing. Shaping. Waiting. These movements are enough. They are always enough. Outside, the river continues its slow, constant presence. A fisherman has already pushed his boat into the water. The motion is familiar enough that it feels almost like memory repeating itself. The oar dips into the Nile, creating small ripples that spread and fade. The river responds without change. It accepts everything that is placed upon it. Boats. Nets. Time. The morning grows gradually brighter, and with it, the fields begin to fill with movement. Farmers walk along narrow paths between green rows. Their footsteps are steady, unhurried. The soil beneath them carries moisture from past floods, a reminder of the river's long influence. Nothing here exists without that influence. Every field, every village, every routine, all shaped by the same water moving slowly through the land. In a shaded corner near a home, an older man sits quietly for a moment before beginning his work. He does not rush into the day. He lets it arrive fully. This small pause is part of his rhythm now. A lifetime of mornings has taught him that there is no need to hurry what will happen anyway. He watches the light shift across the ground. He listens to distant sounds of movement. He recognizes each one without effort. The grinding of grain. The soft call of a neighbor. The rustle of animals being guided out. These sounds are not interruptions. They are confirmation that the day is unfolding correctly. Across the settlement, workshops begin to fill with activity again. Clay is shaped. Wood is smoothed. Tools are repaired. Cloth is woven. Each task follows its own steady pattern, but all share the same underlying quality, repetition refined over time. There is comfort in this repetition. It removes uncertainty. It replaces guesswork with memory. A potter does not need to wonder how the clay will behave. He already knows. His hands have learned through countless cycles of work. The material responds as expected because the process has been repeated so many times that it feels almost natural. Nearby, a group of laborers prepares materials for transport. Stones are lifted with practiced coordination. Ropes are tightened. Movements are synchronized without need for instruction. Everyone understands the rhythm of the work. It is not fast. But it is steady. And in this world, steadiness matters more than speed. As the sun climbs higher, the brightness across the valley becomes more intense. Shadows shrink. Colors grow stronger. The river reflects a deeper, clearer blue. The desert beyond glows with a pale heat that suggests the warmth already building in the air. People adjust without complaint. They have always adjusted. Early tasks are completed more quickly now, before the heat becomes too strong. Then movement slows. Shade becomes more important. Work continues, but with careful attention to energy. A group of workers sits beneath a wall where the shade is narrow but enough. They drink water slowly. They rest their arms. They speak in quiet tones. Their conversation is not filled with urgency. It is simple. A mention of crops. A repair needed later. A small observation about the weather. Nothing more is required. Life in this moment does not demand complexity. It only asks for presence. As midday approaches, the heat becomes stronger again, pressing down on the landscape with familiar weight. The world grows still in its brightness. Even the river seems more reflective, less active, as if holding the sun gently on its surface. Work continues where it must, but much slows. This is not resistance. It is adaptation. A rhythm learned over generations. In a shaded interior, a scribe continues his careful work. Ink flows across papyrus in controlled lines. Numbers, records, and lists take shape. His task is quiet, but it holds importance that extends beyond the room. He is preserving order. Not through force, but through memory. Without written records, much would be lost. But here, everything is carefully maintained. Not rushed. Not expanded. Just preserved. Outside, the heat reaches its peak. The village feels almost suspended again, similar to the stillness of night, but in light instead of darkness. Movement becomes minimal. The air is heavy but familiar. Even this intensity is part of the known pattern. Nothing surprises the people who live here. The day has done this before. And it will do it again. As afternoon slowly begins to soften, the strongest heat gradually loosens its hold. The light becomes less harsh. The air begins to move again. The river regains its gentle shimmer. Work begins to shift toward completion. People think again of home. Of rest. Of evening. And as the sun lowers once more toward the horizon, the familiar transition begins again. Fields grow quieter. Paths become busier with returning footsteps. Boats turn toward shore. Smoke begins to rise. The cycle moves forward without effort. Not because it is forced, but because it is natural. Because it belongs to the land, the river, and the people who live beside them. Evening will come. Night will follow. And then morning will return again, exactly as it always has, carrying forward the same steady rhythm that shapes every life along the Nile, in a world where time does not rush, but simply continues, softly and endlessly, like breath moving through calm air. Evening begins its return across the Nile Valley, quiet and unhurried, as if the day is gently loosening its hold on the land. The sun lowers toward the horizon in a slow descent, casting long shadows across the fields. The green of the crops softens into deeper tones. The river catches the fading light and holds it for a while, reflecting gold that gradually turns into amber. Everything feels familiar in this change. Nothing is sudden. Nothing resists. Work across the villages begins to slow once more. Farmers pause at the edges of fields, resting their hands on wooden tools. Laborers set down stones that no longer need to be moved today. Fishermen draw their boats closer to shore, letting the current ease them into place. The motion of the day does not end abruptly. It dissolves. Along narrow paths between homes, people begin walking back in steady, quiet groups. Their footsteps are soft against the earth. Dust rises briefly and then settles again. There is no hurry in their movement, only completion. A man carries a bundle of grain over his shoulder. A woman walks beside him holding a small container of water. A child follows, looking at the changing sky. No one speaks much. There is no need. The day itself has already spoken through its labor. In the village, smoke begins to rise from cooking fires once more. It drips upward in thin, familiar lines, blending with the cooling air. The smell of bread returns, along with simple meals prepared in small clay vessels. Evening in ancient Egypt is always a time of return. Not just to homes, but to one another. Families gather in courtyards or inside modest rooms. Mats are laid out. Food is shared slowly. Water is passed from hand to hand. The atmosphere is calm, unhurried, and close. A child leans against an adult, already half asleep. An older woman sits quietly near the edge of the light, watching the group with steady eyes. A man speaks briefly about the condition of the fields. Then silence returns again. These moments are not rare. They are daily. And because they are daily, they feel deeply known. Outside, the river reflects the last strong colors of sunset. Boats drift toward their resting places along the bank. Ropes are tied. Nets are lifted and hung. The river accepts each action as part of its ongoing rhythm. It never changes its response. It always carries everything forward. As the sky deepens, stars begin to appear again one by one. Not all at once, but gradually, as if they are returning slowly to their places above the world. The transition from day to night is gentle here. There is no sharp boundary. Only soft layers of light fading into darkness. In one small home near the river, a woman sits for a moment outside before entering. She listens to the sounds of evening settling around her. The faint movement of wind through reeds. The distant call of an animal. The quiet presence of water nearby. She remains still for a short time. Not thinking in urgency. Just present. Then she stands and goes inside. The lamp is lit. The interior of the home becomes softly illuminated. Not bright, but warm. Enough to see faces. Enough to share space. Enough to continue the evening in comfort. Inside, there is no expectation beyond rest. The work of the day is complete. Farther away, along the edge of a field, a lone worker finishes a final task. He checks a simple boundary marker. Adjusts something small. Then pauses and looks across the land one last time. Everything is in order. Everything is as expected. He begins walking back toward the village. The night is approaching fully now. The air grows cooler. The movement of wind becomes more noticeable. The desert beyond the fields darkens into a quiet, unchanging presence. The contrast between fertile land and empty sand feels especially clear in this hour. Life gathers near the river. Stillness expands outward. Inside homes, families settle deeper into rest. Conversations fade. Lamps are lowered. The sounds of movement diminish until only the faintest traces remain. A door closing softly. A mat shifting. A final breath before sleep. The village begins to disappear into night. Above it, the stars continue to return in their steady patterns. They do not change their arrangement. They do not alter their rhythm. They simply appear again, as they always have, marking time in a way that feels both distant and familiar. The Nile flows beneath them, carrying the reflection of sky and darkness together. It moves without interruption, without hesitation, without end. And as the night deepens further, Egypt becomes still once more. Not empty. Not silent in absence. But fully settled into its natural state of rest. A world paused between breaths. A world waiting for nothing in particular, because everything it needs will return exactly as it always has. Morning will come again. The river will continue. The fields will wake. And life, in its steady and unchanging rhythm, will begin once more beneath the same calm sky that has watched over it since the beginning of memory. Night over the Nile grows softer now, as if even darkness itself is preparing to rest. The stars remain above the valley, steady and familiar, scattered across the sky like quiet lanterns that never burn out. Their light touches the river in faint reflections, trembling gently with the slow movement of water. Nothing in this moment feels new. Everything feels remembered. The villages lie still. Homes of mud brick and river clay hold their final warmth from the day, slowly releasing it into the cool night air. Inside, families sleep close together on woven mats. The sound of breathing rises and falls in a steady rhythm, soft enough to blend with the wind outside. No one is in a hurry here. There is nowhere to rush toward. Only the long, familiar passage of time moving forward in its quiet way. Outside, the Nile continues its journey. It does not change its pace for anyone. It does not pause for rest or demand attention. It simply flows, carrying the reflection of sky, land, and memory together in one continuous movement. Along its banks, reeds sway slightly in the night breeze, then return to stillness. The desert beyond remains vast and unmoving, holding its silence like something ancient and complete. Everything is in its place. Everything has returned to calm. And so it has been for as long as memory reaches. In this world, life has always followed the same gentle rhythm. Morning arrives without force. Work unfolds without chaos. Evenings return like soft breath. Nights settle like a blanket over the land. Each day rises, passes, and fades into the next without breaking the pattern that holds it together. Not because nothing changes, but because change moves slowly enough to feel like continuity. Generations come and go, yet the river remains. Hands build, plant, harvest, and rest, yet the fields return each season. People live their full lives within this rhythm, and the rhythm continues long after them, unchanged in its essence. There is a quiet comfort in this steadiness. A sense that the world is not unpredictable, but held. Held by water. Held by land. Held by time moving gently forward without hurry. As the night deepens for the final time in this story, even the smallest sounds fade away. The village becomes part of the landscape again, no longer separate from it. Lamps are extinguished. Doors are closed. Dreams begin their slow unfolding behind sleeping eyes. The river remains. Always the river. It carries everything forward without effort, without end, without urgency. It does not remember in the way people do. It simply continues, holding every passing moment for a while before letting it drift away. Above it, the stars remain unchanged. They have watched all of this before. And they will continue to watch long after. In the stillness of this ancient land, time does not feel like something that escapes or disappears. It feels like something that breathes. Slowly. Steadily. Without interruption. And now, as the valley rests beneath its quiet sky, there is nothing more that needs to happen. The day has ended as it always does. The night has arrived as it always does. And everything that lives here, from the smallest home to the widest stretch of river, settles gently into silence, carried by the same calm rhythm that has never truly changed. Ancient Egypt does not feel distant in this moment. It feels still. It feels familiar. It feels like a long, peaceful breath that continues even after the words have ended. And now, it rests.